Before you consider a move to Crestview, Florida, you need to watch this video. Let's get into it. So let's get into the top 5 reasons why Crestview might be the worst place for you to move to.
The absolute worst.
The absolute worst.
It sounds so good. I'm really glad we're doing this video.
This is great.
Nobody buying Crestview. I will say there are definitely some kind of drawbacks, maybe some professional hindrances to living in Crestview.
Wait, before we go too far, at the very end of this video, we're going to give you a little bit of reason why you should. So it's not a complete downer video. We're not just downers, okay? Anyway, keep going about job opportunities.
And also, if you live in Crestview and you've used us to purchase there, we still love you.
Yeah, we like you. You guys are fine. Just because you make terrible decisions.
Hashtag horrible life choices. Okay, so for real though, it is a little bit difficult to find a, kind of professional job in the Crestview area. It is a bit rural, if you will. It is up and coming, so there is some stuff up there and things are constantly being built out there. But the majority of people that have, professional pay-worthy jobs seem to have to drive a little bit further. Usually they're going over to Eglin or somewhere else, maybe to a medical facility or some type of DOD job, something like that. Or we have a ton of our military family is out in Crestview. Lots of military in Crestview. And that's great because you get a whole lot of bang for your buck. Your VA loan goes a super far way. You get plenty of land, plenty of house, not a huge mortgage, and you're not a terrible commute to the base.
And even though it is rural, it still is up and coming. As AJ was kind of saying, it has changed so much over the last decade and a half or so. I remember when I first moved here, it was tiny. There was only a couple of fast food restaurants, and that was really it. Not really a whole lot of shopping other than a few shops downtown. And now all of that's still there, but they've still got a little bit of extra. It's grown a little bit. And the community's gotten a lot stronger as well, which is fairly helpful.
No, wait, there's more. We're also seeing a whole lot of new builds out there. So before, a lot of the properties, they were already kind of established, but now we're seeing lots of new builds, lots of new developments. So you're able to get the same great quality and brand new houses for a really decent price. And also some of these builders like D.R. Horton, they're going to provide you some really great incentives to include lowered interest rates and their own homeowners insurance, which their rates are better than you're going to see on the regular market as well. So lots of incentives to purchasing new in Crestview, as long as you can find a job.
And out of all of the areas that we service, Crestview is probably one of the best ones for that best bang for your buck. So if you're looking for, the nicest, largest house for the lower price, outside of living in one of the even more rural areas nearby, Crestview is going to be one of your best options there. And speaking of the real estate market, we are real estate agents first. So my name is Andrew and this is
AJ.
And if you need any help purchasing in Crestview, even though we're about to say lots of terrible things about it, we are going to say some good things because it is awesome to live there as well. You can go ahead and give us a call. All of our information will pop up on the screen right now. You can call, text, email, send a carrier pigeon, a football with a note on it, or even a brick through a window. Whatever you want to do to get a hold of us. Please don't throw bricks at us.
Or our windows.
Yeah, or our windows.
So, speaking about throwing bricks, not really, but the traffic situation.
Good segue.
It's a great segue, right? Very similar to having a brick thrown at you sometimes. So there is one main road that travels north and south between Crestview and going towards Eglin. That is 85. And it does get pretty packed pretty quickly during the rush hour times. And you might feel like throwing a brick, or you might feel like one is being thrown at you during those times. So if you have the ability to decide what time you're going to leave both to work and back home, that would really behoove you in these situations because everybody seems to want to drive at the same times. And a 20-minute drive turns into a 45-minute to an hour drive, sometimes more. If someone's texting and driving and gets into a little fender bender on the road and doesn't pull over, it takes even longer, and it seems to happen quite a bit.
Yeah, most of your commute is actually going to be on the way back into Crestview. Generally on the way out, you're generally good, unless of course there is an accident. On the way back, however, it doesn't need to be an accident for it to get a little congested. Generally from about 4 to 4:45 every day, it starts getting pretty packed. And a lot of that is because you've got all of the traffic coming from Eglin Air Force Base, as well as Niceville, the people that were working there. And then you've got the 7th Special Forces groups and Duke that are located just south of Crestview, and they're all converging on this one road that is supposed to be used by 25,000 people in the city to get in and out.
Super fun.
Exciting. And that brings us to the third worst thing about Crestview, and that is the climate. Now, this is kind of synonymous about any city in our area, so all of this is going to be kind of the same if you've watched our videos before. It does get warm here. Our summers hover around the 80s and 90s, and the humidity is pretty high. In fact, just taking some laundry out to my vehicle today before I headed into work, I was already sweating. It was like 8 steps outside. Like, that's what it feels like. You kind of step outside, you feel like you already need a shower. That's just the Florida life. You just got to kind of get used to it. And of course, our winters are very short and relatively mild compared to most areas of the countries, but to us Floridians, it's brutal and terrifying.
Brutal.
It gets all the way down to like the 40s sometimes, like Fahrenheit. I'm not even messing around with this. Like, that's how crazy cold it gets. We do get some frost overs every once in a while. We do get ice on the roads every once in a while. When that happens, we don't know what is going on. You do not want to be on the roads when Florida has ice on it, because it is scary stuff. But it does last very briefly. Very, very briefly.
Until the sun comes out.
Yeah, until the sun. Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden everything dries out. We do have about 2 to 3 weeks generally each year where it does get pretty cold. You are going to have to wear a bigger jacket. The heaviest jacket I own is a hoodie, so just put that into perspective. It's not that bad. But we do have to put our flippy floppies away and switch to shoes a lot of the time, and pants, which is always awkward.
While you might be laughing at how we experience cold out here and really dread having to put on a jacket, because then I don't know if this isn't like a big deal to anyone else, but having to get into your car with like a big bulky jacket. I actually wear big bulky jackets when it gets cold. I have poor circulation. My hands are always freezing. So it's like a big deal to me when it's cold outside too. So I get into my car and I've got this big bulky jacket, and then you're trying to drive in like this jacket and you're like, oh man, now the heat's working. I need to take this thing off. But when you got into your car, you were cold, and so you were still wearing it. And then you got to figure out how you're going to take this bulky jacket off while you're driving like to work or something. I don't know how you people in the north do it.
So it's also very dangerous to be on the roads in the winter time, apparently, because people have bulky jackets that they can't drive in. It's the third scariest thing you've ever said.
Really?
Yeah, you do not want to know the first two.
We'll talk about it off camera. But the really fun times that we have are hurricanes and rainfall. And those are also horrible times to drive. So actually just yesterday, we had crazy, crazy weather here. I had my daughter in the back, and it was about an hour and a half drive from where I am in Santa Rosa Beach over to Milton to go show her property. And it was just like torrential downpour. I mean, you could hardly see. Everybody's got their hazards on, which you're not supposed to do, but everybody does it anyway. Like brake lights, you know, the lights in the back, those are good enough. You don't need the hazards as well. But we're driving and we're talking like 40 miles below the speed limit. You can barely see the person in front of you. Very difficult to see, you know, your left and right. So we do get some crazy rainfall, and it can happen almost any time, really. We have specific months where you're going to anticipate that kind of rainfall, which are June to September. So it makes sense that we're feeling it right now in July. But, you know, it's Florida, so we tend to get rain sometimes. But the next thing that we get are the hurricanes that I briefly touched on. And those are a very real thing, both in Crestview and in the entire panhandle of Florida. We really can't avoid them. You know, hurricanes are going to hit. That's all there is to it. Luckily, in Crestview, you are at the highest elevation in the state. So if we get hit by a hurricane and everybody else is flooding, Crestview is in a pretty great spot. And
of course, with hurricanes, you do have a lot of heads up. I know a lot of people see stuff on the news and the weather. I remember when I moved here, I was kind of thinking, well, that's going to suck if I have to deal with one of these. But then you actually live here and you realize you get like a week and a half notice most of the time. And you're going to know within about 3 days if it looks like it's going to be a direct hit, which is pretty rare. The last real direct hit we had was, I guess, kind of Michael. I mean, that was technically Panama City, but we were kind of like in the bands. Other than that, it was like 2005 for the last decent, you know, sized one. So don't freak out too much about the hurricanes. It's one of the most common questions we get asked, but it is really, really fine because you're just going to pick up and leave, or you should if it's big enough.
Or, you know, bring your flag outside, be a hashtag Florida man, you know,
true.
Whichever. Do it for the gram. If you're concerned about hurricanes and you want to know just in advance, like, hey, in the event that I do want to purchase in Crestview, I'd like to know in advance how to prepare for a hurricane. We do have a hurricane prepared guide. We can link it down below for you guys. So you can check that out so that you can see what you might potentially be doing once every 16 years.
It is going to ask for your email, but don't worry, we're not going to spam you with anything. It's 100% free and sales free as well. All right, number 4 on our list is probably be the one that's going to hit most of you guys, the one that's actually going to matter. Because the other three, it's like, okay, well, that's kind of part of being in a rural town. You kind of expected most of that stuff. But number 4 is unlimited entertainment, which I guess is also part of being in a rural town. But Crestview, for the size that it has, it doesn't feel like to me that it's got enough entertainment out there in general. It does have a lot of fast food places. There are some great restaurants there, but there's not anything that you're going to write home about, in my personal opinion. Like I've never eaten at a restaurant there that, well, okay, there's one exception. There's a pretty good steak place, okay? But other than that, you're not really going to, be too excited about most of the food there. The shopping is a little bit scarce as well. They do have a downtown area, which is very pretty, very historic. But because it is historic, it also comes with the fact that it looks a little bit older, a little bit, I don't want to use the word rundown because it sounds too rough. Yeah, a little bit dated, I think is a better word.
The great news about this whole, not a lot of nightlife kind of thing means that if you're moving here with a family, you're going to have some pretty quiet nights, which is great because if you have young children like I do, getting them to sleep is a great feat. And then if they get woken up by some really loud neighbors, it likes to happen sometimes at my place, you get really mad. So having the ability to put your children to sleep really nicely and easily and not have them woken up by some crazy music going on next door is a great blessing. However, if you're coming to the area and maybe you're single or still like to party regardless of your status, then you can get to it somewhat quickly. I mean, Destin isn't really that far away. You can get there through going through Niceville or even coming through Fort Walton. Fort Walton has some great options for you. So you're looking at about maybe 35 minutes of a drive to get to some actual action where you can go and have some adult beverages or, a nice dinner that is going to cost you a little bit more. But you have quick access to it and you have a quiet home, which is kind of nice.
So on top of everything else we mentioned, Crestview is pretty limited in the local events that they do. They do some, but there's not really anything that I can think of that they are really, really known for. So you are going to have to go into one of the more touristy cities for that kind of stuff. Billy Bowlegs, the Mullet Festival, which is now Boggy Bayou Festival, things like that. You are going to have to travel a little bit. But the cool thing is Crestview is about 30 to 45 minutes away from just about anything. Now, grocery is also limited. There are only 3 different grocery stores, which is, I guess, good. It's kind of good for the size it is. So you've got Publix, Winn-Dixie, and of course, Wally World, aka Walmart. So if you like shopping at any of those places, then you've got those in town.
If this is your first time to our channel, thank you for watching. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ding the bell so that you get notified every time we do another video. If you're a returning viewer or subscribers, thank you as well. We're happy to see you guys again. Please don't forget, we're real people and we get super stoked every time you guys call us to help you purchase a property. So don't think, oh, well, it's Andrew and AJ. We're never going to meet them. We're never going to talk to them. No, that's not the case. We're going to talk to you. So we might not be the first person that you talk to because we have to field quite a few calls, but you will get to us. So please give us a call, text, email, find us on Facebook, whatever it is. We seem to get a lot of messages there and we absolutely and truly love it.
All right, now that we have all of that YouTube stuff out of the way, let's go on to number 5 on our list, which is Crestview's not going to have the same Florida feel as you were going to have in one of the coastal towns. That should be fairly obvious, but we do want to make sure that we're letting you know that. So the palm trees and the beautiful white sands are going to be about 30 minutes away. You're not going to have those in town as much, unless, of course, you put your own palm tree up or something, but they are not generally native to that section there. So it's not going to have that same beachy feel.
It's also going to be a little bit more hilly and some different elevations than we tend to see in some of our more coastal towns. Because of that higher elevation, we do see some dugout portions and such. And sometimes you will see that a property might be between 2 kind of built up properties and you've created a basin there. And that might be something that you wish to avoid, because even though a lot of the water is going to continue to run off of Crestview in general because of its higher elevation, if you do find yourself in a basin between 2 other properties, the first place it's going to come is to you. So just something to look out for. Not something that we see super regularly. Crestview's actually done a really great job of kind of avoiding that. Some of them will actually have a stair kind of effect. I have a property I'm going to be listing soon, and that's exactly what the neighborhood looks like. It looks like a set of stairs. So all the water just continues to flow through. It doesn't actually hit the houses, comes out to the road, gets out of the way.
Which is a little bit of a disadvantage if you're not used to getting in a driveway that's like that, because the road will be straight and the houses on this side will be at this angle and the houses on this side will be at this angle. So it's daunting when you first look at it. You're like, is my car going to go up there? In fact, when I first started in real estate, I had just a little tiny Nissan Altima, low to the ground. I wouldn't go up in most of these or down in most of these because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to bottom out this car. So if you are going to purchase in a neighborhood like that, please make sure you've got a vehicle that is suited for it or that you can park on the street.
Overall, though, we know that we're giving you all of these reasons to not purchase in Crestview, but we just want you to be very and truly familiar with the area if you are considering purchasing there. But all in all, we actually actually really like Crestview. We highly recommend it to anyone who's moving here that's military, especially a first-time home buyer who's going to be working over at Eglin. This is a great location for you, whether you're using the BRRRR method and wanting to start with a single-family residence, then rent it out later, then buy another one, or if this is going to be, your space for a long time. There are so many benefits to purchasing in Crestview, and we would absolutely love to have that conversation with you if you are considering it.
Now, we're not going to go into 5 more minutes of why we love Crestview. We've got a ton of videos on that already, so go ahead and go back to our channel and check out that stuff if a rural small town feel is for you. Now, if you did get value out of this, please go ahead and click that like button. And of course, if you have any questions, you can comment down below. And I guess we will see you guys in the next one.
Bye, y'all.